I'm Mike Costello, and I'd like to talk to you in the next few minutes about how you feel. All of us have different feelings at different times. In New Thought metaphysical philosophy, we believe that we live in our minds and not in the world. What that means is that we live in our thoughts, that the way that we respond and react to life in our thoughts, in our mind, determines the character of our life. In today's environment, we read a lot about emotions and feelings and the importance of them. And so often, it is a misunderstood concept about New Thought metaphysics that we're always supposed to be happy, that we're always supposed to be positive, that we're never supposed to feel any of the negative aspects or emotions of life. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we talk about is being fully human and fully spiritual. And in order to be fully spiritual and fully human, we experience all that both of those states offer us. And then we are fully real in our minds. And so we don't labor under any illusion that we're always going to be happy or that we need to suppress any kind of feeling or emotion. And so I want to talk to you today about the importance of feeling the way that you feel. All of us need to feel the way that we feel. Because if we don't allow our feelings to come out, if we don't get in touch with the reality of how it is that we feel, we damage ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Psychologists have told us this, physicians have told us this, sociologists have told us this, theologians have told us this, religious teachers have told us this. Everyone knows that there is this connection, and everyone knows that by denying reality, by denying emotion, by denying feeling, that we damage ourselves, and we damage ourselves sometimes irreparably. So it's very, very important that we get in touch with our feelings. One of the magnificent things that's happened over the last 2 decades, and especially the last decade, is the real embracing across all socioeconomic lines, across broad spectrums of persons, the reality of getting in touch with our feelings, allowing ourselves the freedom to feel the way that we feel. And then once we get into the way that we feel, then we have the opportunity to make some change. But if we deny the way that we feel, we essentially deny who and what we are. We deny the reality of our being. And we all know that by doing that, we could do nothing but bring damage to ourselves in all of our aspects of life. And so the way that you feel is the way that you feel, and that's okay. Many times when people come to us for counseling or come into our churches or centers or classes, one of the first things that they ask is, am I always supposed to be positive? Am I always supposed to be happy? Well, the goal is to be positive, affirmative, and happy in our mind and in our spirit and in our being. But in truth, that happiness overcomes the difficulties. It overcomes the negativity. It doesn't suppress it. It doesn't deny it. And it doesn't allow it to express itself. And so we all have to be able to express both the positive and the negative, the joy and the sadness and the feelings that we have in our life. So I invite you always to be aware of the truth that you need to allow yourself, that we need to allow ourselves to feel the way that we feel. And we need to give attention to the way that we feel. If you're sad, you're sad. If you're glad, you're glad. If you're mad, you're mad. If you're sick, you're sick. Whatever it is that you're feeling, allow yourself to feel that, and it's okay. It's all right. But what we don't want to do is to allow those negative aspects of life to take control of us, to be in that experience always. What we need to do is to be in the experience, in the feeling, in the emotion, to be in it and to acknowledge it and then to deal with it. Vent it, act it, respond to it, do whatever is appropriate. Psychologists and sociologists tell us that we need to get in touch with our feelings by defining them. And one of the best ways to define the way that we feel is to remind ourselves that when we look at feelings, we should really define the way that we feel in one word. And there are about 3 broad categories a lot of groups use to define feelings. And that is that we're either sad or mad or glad, and that many other feelings come into each of those areas. But by using one word to describe how we feel, it brings focus to it, to our feeling for ourselves. And if we're working through it with a partner or a friend or a therapist or a counselor, it helps them. It helps us to identify and articulate how it is that we're feeling. And so one word about how you feel is the way to get in touch with your feeling, not a whole paragraph. A week or so ago, a lady called me at the church, and she was obviously upset, and I was talking to her about her feelings, and I kept coming back to her again and again with the question, how do you feel? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? We were talking about a relationship that had ended, and a difficulty that she had at work, and a lot of personal problems. And each time I would say, how do you feel about that? She would tell me sentences and sentences and sentences and sentences about why she was feeling or why she felt she was feeling. But she wasn't telling me what she was feeling. She was telling me, she was justifying to herself and to me why she was feeling the way that she was feeling. What we need to do is get in touch with how we feel. And to do that, choose single words. And if you feel sad, accept the fact that you feel sad and decide, is your sadness appropriate? What brought you to that point? And how is it that you're going to go through this experience? And you notice I didn't say get out of the experience. I said, how are you going to go through the sadness? Or if you're glad, then you're glad, and you're glad for a reason. And what are the reasons that have made you glad? So getting in touch with these feelings and looking at them. Also being aware of the fact that there's no reason to judge your feelings. And whether you feel positive or negative, whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling, don't worry about that. You feel the way that you feel. And when you get into the reality of getting in touch with your feelings, don't get into the game playing of I should feel this way, or I ought to feel that way, or I ought to feel this, or I ought to do that. Instead, give that up and just acknowledge you feel the way that you feel, and that's okay. It's all right to feel the way that you feel. We live in our minds and not in the world. That's metaphysical philosophy. That's New Thought teaching. That's this faith that we talk about in our fellowship. And that's an empowering philosophy that begins with allowing you to feel the way that you feel, but not allowing the way that you feel to determine the way that you're going to feel in the next 10 minutes, in the next hour, in the next day, or in the next week. Those are decisions that you make for yourself in concert with the divine presence and power of God, together with all of those that you're in this life experience with. So it's an empowering aspect of life. So we don't need to avoid the negative feelings. We don't need to always have the positive feelings, but we need to know where we are. No matter where you are in life, in your feelings, no matter where each one of us is in feeling experiences of life, allow yourself to do and be in that feeling. And as you do, allow your feelings to emerge and decide how it is you need to deal with the way that you're feeling. In New Thought, we use affirmations and denials. So many people think that that means, that we talk about only positive things and we always deny all the bad things. That's not at all what the teaching is. Affirmation and denial is simply this. We affirm the good and we deny the fact that negative feelings or emotions have power over us. It doesn't deny that they exist. It denies that they have power over us. The same is true of physical experiences. We believe in spiritual healing. We believe in medical healing as well. But when we face a physical crisis, when we have a physical illness or disease, we accept the fact that we have that disease, but we deny the fact that that disease has control over us. It doesn't mean that we're saying it's not there. It does mean that we're saying that whatever it is we're facing doesn't have to have total and complete control over us. And that as we condition our minds, as we change our way of thinking, then we can change the character of our life. You see how simple that idea is? As we change our way of thinking, we begin with the way that we feel. We begin with the way that we think. And we change the way that we think, thereby changing the way that we feel, thereby changing the character of our life. Has the circumstance changed? Probably not. The disease didn't immediately go away, although in some cases it does, but generally that isn't the case. The problem doesn't immediately disappear. The sadness doesn't immediately go. The poverty isn't immediately eliminated. But our way of thinking about the experience and the feeling has changed. That's denial. Denying the power of the negative to control you and your life, not denying that there is negative experience and negative life. Affirm the positive in your life. And as you affirm that which is positive, even when you feel negative, something wonderful begins to happen. Your mind begins to act and react and respond to circumstances and situations. And as your mind reacts and responds, you're able to change. And as you're able to change the way that you think, you're able to change the way that you feel. The important thing is not to deny the way that you feel, because if you deny the way that you feel, then you're living an untruth, because your mind will create after its own kind. It will create what you plant as a seed. And so it's very important not to do that. It's very important to accept the reality of life, accept the circumstances of the situation, accept the way that you feel. Unlock the door to your feelings. And when you unlock that door, understand that to your mind and to your heart and to your being, there is one door in and one door out. And as you open that door and let your feelings out, you're able to let other feelings in. As you're able to let your thoughts out, you're able to let other thoughts in. And as that door swings open widely of your heart and your mind, and you're willing and able to accept the experience of how you feel, in mind, in body, in spirit, in heart, and in soul, you're able to leave that door open and let the experience of feeling move in and move out. And what's going to happen, and what can very wonderfully happen, is the damaged and the lame and the hurt thoughts and feelings can come out of that door. And as they come out of that door and out of your life, and you can look at them and examine them objectively, then you can change the way that you feel about them. And when you do that, what goes back into the door of your being is totally different than that which has come out. There's good and there's bad in all of our lives. There's good and there's bad in every circumstance and situation, in every life. And as we are able to get in touch with the way that we feel, and as we're able to connect and train and teach and learn how to better empower our mind and our mind action, we get more clearly attuned with the presence and the power of God to guide and direct us in ways that we would have never imagined. I don't know if you're hurt right now. I know you will probably experience hurt in your life. I know that you're feeling something. If you're not feeling something, that's a whole set of feelings that you need to deal with. Whatever it is you feel it, accept it, examine it, and be in the midst of it, and allow your mind to deal with it. And your mind can change your life, and your life can be positive and fulfilling in the midst of every circumstance and situation. How do you feel? I hope you feel good. If you don't, I give you the promise that by applying these techniques, you can feel good again. That no matter what the circumstance and situation you face is or may be, no matter what it is that comes into your life, you can be strengthened and empowered to deal with it. That's the promise, that's the teaching, and that's the reality of metaphysical New Thought philosophy. We believe in prayer and meditation, and we'd like to invite you to pause at this point in the program to join with us in a reflection. Eternal and loving God, we give you great thanks for the feelings that we all have, for our emotions. We open ourselves to the reality of all of our feelings, and we ask that we may objectively view the way that we feel, that we may permit ourselves to feel the way that we feel, and that we may enter into that feeling with your divine and holy presence, inviting ourselves to change our way of thinking about our emotions and our feelings, centering ourselves in your presence and your light. We ask and know these things in the name of faith, in the name of hope, in the name of love. Amen.
If we could all follow the pointers you just set forth, then we'd be happier in mind, body, and spirit, and healthier.
I think we all need to be reminded of the fact that we need to feel the way we feel. And so often, in a lot of the messages that we give here on the program or we present in the church or in classes, people get the mistaken idea that we all live kind of a Pollyanna life and that it's not okay to feel. And I think last Sunday in church, I mentioned when I gave a talk on feelings as well, that so many people have come up to me, and I've heard people in the fellowship room in different places saying, "Oh, don't say that, don't feel that," and as though it's something to be avoided. And certainly there are some negative feelings and thoughts and words that
Mhm.
can be avoided as we go through life, but that becomes a natural process, not something that has to be imposed, kind of like laws or regulations that we have. And so people need to feel the way that they feel.
Yes, and to acknowledge that that's the way they feel.
Mhm.
And as you just said, and as you said so well in your talk, we need to let our hurts out, acknowledge them, and let them go. Because if we stuff them down, we know what happens,
Mhm.
and it's not very good. But if we express them, and I found in my lifetime that people um, respect me more if I say how I feel. If I say I really felt bad when you did such and such, or if I hurt someone else's feelings inadvertently, to say I'm really sorry I did that because I wouldn't hurt you, but I was just not thinking. And so if we can do that, then we don't have these hurts building up. Everything comes out even every day, and then life is far more beautiful.
And the way that it's supposed to be. But the
Yes.
importance is what you said so beautifully, which is we need to say it simply.
Yes.
I feel bad. I
Yes.
feel this. I feel that. So often when we talk to each other about our feelings, by the time we finish the disjointed paragraphs and all of this, because you said this and I did this and I did this, we've never told the person how it is we feel.
Yes.
And worse yet, we've never told ourselves how it is we feel, but we've been able to talk for 3 minutes, and that's the problem.
Yes, and we need to say that. I know recently someone disappointed me one evening by not following through on things the way I would think would be normal. And the next morning, when I was having a telephone conversation with that person, I said, I really felt bad at what you said and did last night. And so that person said, well, I didn't give it a thought. I'm really sorry. I was just thinking about hurrying home, that I would soon be home. And so, but that person said, well, they were really glad that I said what I felt.
Mhm.
And I found that that's best. It's best to just bring it right out, because then we don't fret and fuss over it. We drop it. We forget about it,
Mhm.
and it's no longer bothering us.
Right. But if we don't, then it just continues to fester, continue to smolder, and it gets worse and worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can be honest and forthright. I was thinking too that there's a young lady who attends our church. She's been attending about a year, and she told me just today on the telephone that she'll always remember the first time she came. She said, "You were speaking to me that I was the first person she saw when she entered our church, and it happened to be on a Wednesday evening when I have my Wednesday evening service." And she said, "And I'll always remember what you said to me." And I couldn't wait for her to tell me what I said, and obviously it's good, so I'm eager to hear. And so she said, I said, I'm looking for a church and I don't know if this is going to be the right church for me. And she said, you just said, well, spend the evening with us and see how you feel.
Mhm.
And if you feel good, then come back. And if you don't, then go to a different church and see how you feel there. And you might then eventually come back here. And so, and that was really very a wise thing to say, although I just said it inadvertently.
Mhm. And so different than people who would say, come to church because you must,
Yes.
because of this or that.
Yes.
And of course, the counsel you were giving was just wonderful. And that is, we need to respond to our feelings.
Exactly, exactly. Honor your own feelings. And so this is what I would say to her, but if I planned to say that, I wouldn't think to say it.
Mhm.
But it's the way we live, it's the way we teach in our church, you and I and the other ministers there, and that's the way life should be. Everyone should honor their own feelings, and if they don't feel good there, then go somewhere else.
Right. And we know scripturally that the simple truth is that, as Christ Jesus said, all of the laws were in the two, that we love God and
Hmm.
that we love our neighbor as ourselves. And so if we don't deal with our own feelings, if we can't deal with how it is we are,
Yes.
and deal with our relationship with other persons,
Hmm.
then we certainly can't operate from a love consciousness and center.
That is such an important point, because then we're operating with the negative aspect of thinking as opposed to the love aspect. And we should all keep that in mind deliberately, shouldn't we?
We should. And that love aspect sometimes requires our honesty.
Uh-huh.
Honesty on our part and honesty as we express it to others.
Yes. And that's if we respect other people for their individuality and don't try and program others, then they're happier and we're happier, and everything works out, balances.
Mhm. We've talked so often on the program about the fact that metaphysical philosophy and New Thought faith is rooted in individual responsibility.
Hmm.
And isn't that a wonderful aspect of our faith? We don't tell people what to do.
Yeah.
We create within people an individual sense of responsibility for their spiritual well-being, not through a creed or a doctrine or even through a teaching,
Hmm.
but through their own conscious awareness of the presence and power of God.
Yes, I think the keynote of our very existence during this era of life is self-discovery, don't you?
Absolutely.
That's essentially what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely. And that self-discovery for so many people doesn't exist
Yeah.
because so many of us go through life doing what we've been told to do from our earliest age. And one of the greatest examples is the wonderful thing, and certainly we don't want to get into political issues
Yes.
here, but the wonderful thing of the women's movement in
Hmm.
terms of what it has done to empower women, because here we had generations that had conditioned women to a certain way of life and to a certain thought of life, when in fact that wasn't what should have been or was to be at all.
Hmm.
And so as women were empowered, they realized what they could do. They realized that they could feel, they could be self-sufficient, they could be contributing members of society, they could be independent, they could be empowered, and all of those things. And it came from that emotion and feeling becoming demonstrative in their hearts and minds and being able to stand up in many cases to the establishment.
Hmm. It's a cycle, isn't it? We're in this cycle now where women need to be empowered and men need to respect the feminine aspect of their own beinghood. And it's been like that. Life is always a cycle. So we went through the cycle aeons ago. The women were treated as goddesses, and the goddess within, and the goddess was the major aspect of being. And then men became more predominant, and women were like scrunched down. And men at the same time didn't honor the feminine aspect of their own beinghood. They became too macho,
Mhm.
and all these things happened. So now we're in balancing again. We're in this time of balancing out the masculine and the feminine, balancing out how do we feel or do we express it. And it's a lovely thing when people are self-empowered because they dare to say their feelings, dare to say, that really hurt me.
Mhm. And that, of course, has been the difficulty of organized faith for generations.
Mhm.
And that is that so few faith traditions invite people to be empowered
Yes.
enough to make their own decisions,
Yes.
to make their own judgments about the validity of where they are. And that empowerment issue is a major one. And we're all moving through an era of empowerment today.
Yes. We're moving through it, and we're also moving with it, with that energy. And don't you think a certain energy is dispensed from the inner planes of being so that we have the impetus with which to move in the direction that we're supposed to be moving at a given time?
Absolutely. There's no question about the fact that we are at the place in time where we need to be from an evolutionary standpoint. We're evolving as a planet. We're evolving as human beings. We're evolving as we're involving and evolving as spiritual beings. We're evolving from a mental standpoint. And all of that is moving us to a point of more predominant and dominant empowerment,
Mhm.
and empowerment at all levels of our life, and the freedom within all of the areas of our life. That's just magnificent. I think, as we move toward this new era and new age, new time, it's just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to see what's happening on all of the realms.
I see that with parents and their children too, where parents are they're more thoughtful of the children's feelings and the children's thoughts, and it makes so now we have a generation of children who are so bright and self-empowered because their parents allow them to use their own power. That's such a lovely thing, isn't it?
It's a beautiful thing. And when we think about it, how many people ever gave thought to how their children felt?
Yeah.
Children were just supposed to be obedient.
Exactly.
And they were to be obedient to the point of total submission
Yes.
until we decided that they reached the age of 14 or 18 or 20 or 21 or wherever it was in our social group where we decided that they were adults. And that was such a time of failing to let people feel
Hmm.
and failing to empower them.
Hmm. And we had a much more unhappy civilization, unhappy populace. And now people are more empowered. The more empowered they become, self-empowered, the more content they are with life, regardless of what befalls them.
Yes, it's a matter of trusting people and trusting the power and grace of God to come through people everywhere. Dr. Freelander and I have been talking about concepts in confident living and inviting you to get in touch with your feelings and allow yourself to feel the way that you feel and change the way that you think. And we hope that these ideas and concepts have been useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
This program is a community outreach of Christ Church. Dr. Mike Costello speaks each Sunday morning at 11 a.m. and Dr. Iris Freelander speaks on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. at the church. On Sunday evenings at 6 p.m., there is a meditation and healing service. Come and join us. You will be warmly welcomed.